This is the first Pinewood Derby car I ever made. It's a wide body car, which means that it is the full 2 3/4 inch wide, and it also is the full 7-inch long car. The way I achieved the extra width was I bought some 1/2 inch by 4 inch wide by 4 foot long poplar from Home Depot. I think it cost me about $7. And I just cut pieces of that poplar down and glued it to the sides of the block before I started carving. Poplar is a very good wood to work with because it carves very easily, and it doesn't have the heavy grain like pine does, so you don't get those grain lines between the hard and the soft wood. The way I made the fin for the rear is I used a paint stirrer that I got from Home Depot, and what I did was I carved an airfoil design to it and mounted it on a couple of pieces of scrap wood that I made. I just kind of whittled them down into position, and I epoxied them onto the car. I used epoxy because epoxy has a very strong bond, and it's fairly easy to work with. It's a 2-part adhesive, which means when you dispense it out, you have to mix the 2 pieces together, or the 2 parts together, and then it'll start to harden up within 1 to 5 minutes, depending on whether you use 1 minute epoxy or 5 minute. I like the 1 minute epoxy because I like to get the stuff attached on there fairly quickly. The other thing I did with this car is I hollowed the whole thing out on the bottom. So I took my Dremel and I hollowed the whole car out so that I could put my weight in the rear. And what I did was I filled the rear of the car with lead shot and tungsten powder to get the weight just right. And then I put this false bottom on. This is just a small piece of balsa wood. And the mistake I made in using that was it is balsa wood, and it's very, very easy to break. And as you can see, by putting my finger against it one day, I actually crumpled it in the front a little bit. It's not a big deal, but aesthetically, I don't like the way it looks on the underside. If I had to do it all over again, I would take a sliver of the pine block and I would sand it down on a belt sander and get it real thin, and then I would glue that down and keep it as pine. I wouldn't use balsa wood again unless I use a thicker balsa wood. But in doing that, you'll reduce the distance you need under the bottom of the car. So, and also when you add on the poplar extensions on the side, you want to make sure that you carve it back, because you don't want the poplar too close to the inside of where the tires would be, because the poplar could actually rub against the center raised portion of the track, causing you to slow down. So you'll see that the narrowest point on the underside of the car is my tires, which is what it should be. You don't want any of the wood to impinge on that area between this edge and the pine block, because it will rub on the track and it will slow the car down. So don't make that mistake if you're going to make a wide body car, especially if the body is low to the ground like mine is. The other thing that I did was I used the racing wheels that are available in some of the aftermarket kits. These are not Boy Scout approved, so technically this isn't a legal racer for the Boy Scouts. However, it does meet the criteria in every other way. And this is a very fast car. This car actually got a chance to race against one of the cars that I made for the youngsters in the family that went to the state championship of Rhode Island a couple years back. You may have noticed this car beating his in a grudge match at the very beginning of this video. Look for it if you haven't seen it already. When you're making a car like this, it's a good idea to have a plan first. If you notice the pictures that I have, you'll see that this design actually started off as just a sketch on paper, and then I have the different stages of construction where you can see it coming to life. If you take the time and do a nice design on paper and then transfer it to the wood, your car should come out closer to what you have imagined on paper. Take the time to build a nice car, because even if you don't win the race for speed, you're sure to get best looking car or best in show. I have a lot of fun building these cars, and I'm sure you will too. Now let's go build a car.